Hello, Heather. Hello, David. How are you today?
Great. Thanks for having me.
That was a bit flat. Can we try that again?
Can we do a Mexican wave? Simon, you start.
Hey, I don't want
Way.
to do that. I've got little T-Rex arms. I don't want people to focus on that. If you can't get into the mood just because the sun's disappeared, with how to increase market share in an uncertain market, what else have you got on your diaries?
Again, very true.
This is a two-way thing.
And now more than ever, that conversation and that topic is relevant.
Okie dokie. Well, as we were talking about off air, because as we say, everyone, we do practice this. You are, of course, our very first guest on the podcast, Heather.
I can't believe I've come back for round two.
We're more surprised than you, believe me. Well, look, today I think we've got a lot of questions that we want to be going on with. Hello to everyone who's joining us. Please do obviously pop up your questions or comments if you've got them. We'll cover as many of those as you can do, as long as Jez Lee doesn't, as usual, say something disgusting. But we've got a few questions for Heather that we want to run through anyway. Heather, for those people that are stuck in a cave, what is Spectre? Can you give us an overview of where you are at the moment and what you're doing for agents?
Yeah, of course I can. So Spectre now is two products. So we've got Spectre Sales and Spectre Lettings. And in a nutshell, it's all about helping agents to win more instructions. So I think if we boil it down to sort of what problem is it solving, for an agent, that how do you market effectively, efficiently? How do you know who to write to, with what content, at what time? And Spectre solves all of those problems and automates a lot of that around it. So through the Spectre software, agents essentially on both the sales side are writing to people at the right time with the right content. Some of that is properties that are currently on the market with other agents, and we help them to do that. Yeah. Some of it is off-market prospecting as well. And on the letting side, it's all about reaching landlords at the optimal time, i.e. the times when they're most likely to be considering a change of agent. So in a very, very small nutshell, that is what Spectre does.
You've got some raving fans out there.
Oh, already. The comments.
Already.
There's an outpouring of love.
Yeah, and not all of those are me on my separate accounts. But anyway, I mean, it's fair to say, isn't it, Heather? You inherited the mantle of Visi, which was a very well-respected tool there, and have really just taken that onto the next level, haven't you? In terms of, obviously, when it was bought by ZPG, it left a gap, and you've really just stepped in and as you said, they're really taking it into new areas, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, going back, 4 or 5 years ago now when we launched, a lot of agents, some of them were aware of Visi, some of them did it manually, some of them didn't do it at all. So we've tried to, Spectre version 1 was just trying to automate that process. So take away the pain of finding addresses, physically writing to them, all of that sort of stuff. And then, gosh, since then, I mean, we do have an in-house dev team, as you guys know. We've just developed and developed and developed. So what the product looks like now is just much more of an all-encompassing marketing tool, I would say. And we've got plenty more to come.
And it's interesting because as much as the product has developed and the tech over the years has developed, at the heart of Spectre, it really comes down to direct mail, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
In the delivery to the actual sort of end user, if you like, or that making contact with that client. So as much as everybody talks about open rates on emails, on drip systems, and all of that, nothing still beats direct mail, does it?
No, I was talking to a marketing expert recently, actually. He was saying that, marketing in many respects has gone full circle. So direct mail is now novel again, and people like receiving, particularly now, given the circumstances. I don't know what you guys are like, but whenever the door goes, I'm like, what is it? So yeah, I think it has gone full circle, and people do like receiving things through the post, something physical. So yeah, and on top of that, I do think, we're electronically bombarded these days through email, through adverts. I can't remember the exact stats about how much you're advertised to through a screen every single day, whereas actually receiving something through the mail, particularly with what you're trying to achieve with Spectre, which is to get a specific message across at a specific time, you've got a much higher chance of somebody actually reading that and taking the message from it than well, we think electronically anyway.
And you have to, David, you really should have been a bit more honest there, because obviously we're all about honesty and transparency.
I'm not.
Well,
I'm
for
an
everyone.
estate agent. I'm sorry. I don't do honesty and transparency.
You've got to say you're a bit biased, because obviously you're a not only a client but a big fan of Spectre as well, aren't you?
Massive fan of Spectre. Personally, I went to the Negotiator Awards and ended up on a Spectre night out by mistake. Took a wrong turn, and they have the most fantastic team you can ever hope to get drunk with. That's number one.
You do have an amazing team.
And number two,
overlooked part of any supplier, isn't it? Really, is
yeah.
How they are on a session.
Number two, just a tiny bit biased, because they are one of the few Manchester-based prop tech companies, which I think there should be more. We should make Manchester a prop tech hub, so it should be the northern powerhouse.
Yeah, it's got a thriving tech community. Obviously, I am currently in London, but I am moving back to Manchester. So
well done, Northerner.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, Manchester is unbelievable for tech. You know, loads of tech talent, and unfortunately, Amazon have just decided to locate a huge tech hub there. So that's not necessarily a good thing. But yeah, Manchester is where it's at. I think loads of investment in the tech community at the moment.
No, that's great. And of course, I am a Spectre user, so we use it here, and it's an amazing tool, and it allows you to. I think what we love about it is it's multi-layered, so you can decide who it is that you're wishing to target and at what time. So there are people that have been on the market. You've got classic letters, which will be, you know, oh, you've been on the market for 2 weeks, you still haven't sold. Have you thought about, you know, changing agents? And you've got the 12-week letters, the 8-week letters, all of that. But you've also got an ability to track those that have been reduced. So that's an early warning signal that something's not quite right there. Things that have been withdrawn at the moment, I think a lot of agents are looking to see which transactions have also fallen through. So sales that were agreed have been frustrated due to COVID or whatever it may be. Now is the time where those vendors are going to be open to a discussion about changing agents. So we find Spectre really useful for that. And I think the key to it, though, Heather, to making it really work is getting the tone of those letters right.
100%. Yeah, content is everything. And we're really keen on, when we set people up with Spectre, we've got a fantastic customer success team in terms of making sure that our clients set up their accounts correctly. So everything that you just said, David, is definitely right. But clients will ultimately choose what triggers that they have. So when they want to write, and that, what we notice is very different depending on the area that you're in. If you're in London, you'd have a totally different timeline of letters typically than, say, a rural sleepy village. So clients choose their triggers, they choose their content. So we have the luxury, I suppose, of seeing all of our clients across the country's return on investment through Spectre, which is one of the big things you can track, exactly how well you're doing with Spectre, which letters a vendor received before they switched to you, all of that sort of stuff. So we tend to know what works and what doesn't work, and we try to impart as much of that knowledge with our customers as possible to make sure, obviously it's in our best interest to make sure that they do as well as possible from Spectre. So one Spectre account to another can look totally different, depending on the client, the area, the content, the triggers. So yeah, it's a very customizable bit of kit, but we do try and advise as much as possible.
So Spectre's available to the whole of the market on a non-exclusive basis. So obviously you can pay per postcode, but you don't have exclusivity within that area. So one of the questions that were being asked, it's going to pop up on the screen now. Do agents using your system accept that they may have competitors that also use it to target their instructions? Other than just saying yes, what's the background to that?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. And yeah, they do all know it's not exclusive. And one of the things that we say when we set up our clients is they have to choose their triggers themselves. So and then they have to write that content themselves. So we actually used to, back in the day, give out generic content. What we found is that by the very definition of what you are trying to do on the whole with Spectre, generic content just doesn't work. You know, fundamentally, you as an agent are writing to somebody who's already instructed one of your competitors. If you then send a generic letter that anybody in your area could send, you're not giving them a single reason to switch to you. So we actually moved away from providing content on the whole for exactly that reason. So clients choose their own triggers and they choose their own content, and they put in that content themselves. What we do is tell them, look, we know this type of content works. You should really be thinking about X, Y, Z. So for example, I'll give you one tiny example, but we know that, for example, including a picture of who the person, who the letter has come from at the bottom of the letter tends to do better than those that don't. So we will impart the knowledge that we have about what tends to work from a return on investment perspective, but we won't write the content itself. So the chances that our clients are sending exactly the same letter on exactly the same day are actually pretty slim, because everybody uses it differently and has different contents. But it's a very good question.
You don't think it'd be off-putting for clients to open a letter and see my photo?
Well, yeah, I would go with Josh's face actually, David, with you guys.
Yeah, there'll be more room for writing letters if we use.
I think you, David, with your old PPE stuff on's the photo that is needed there, isn't it? Trust this man.
The surgeon that's just about to have his medical license taken off in photo. That one.
Yeah, exactly. So Heather, I mean, the title of it was obviously how to win market share. So can you just talk us through a few of the ways that you actually Spectre does help your clients win market share, not just in this market, but obviously in a normal market as well?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'll start with sales, and then I'll go on to lettings. So for to begin with, Spectre sales is all about. Well, it's not all about anymore. There's actually loads more to it than that. But if I start with the fact that you can automatically prospect people who are currently on the market, well, as we know, over 50% of vendors do switch agent before they sell. So the first thing to say is if you're not contacting people that are currently on the market, you're probably missing a big chunk of your potential market. So, certainly very important to be contacting these people. Secondly, as we probably all know, second instructions, you tend to get them on at a better or the right price and can often get a higher fee. If they've gone with sort of a cheap rubbish agent first time round and they've been burnt, then you're much more likely to get them on at the right price second time round, potentially a higher fee. So they typically sell faster. So second instructions are brilliant for gaining market share, because obviously you're not just winning an instruction, you're actually taking an instruction off a competitor that is typically going to be a higher margin instruction for you to have as well. So from an increasing market share perspective, Spectre is very, very good at that. The other thing that we notice on Spectre now, because it's got so many features to it, is some of the other features that link to that. So for example, sending sold in your area letters to people that are currently on the market around the property that you sold, help to add in the social proof. But also you can do the normal off-market sold in your area letters as well. So plenty of our clients get a lot of success from that. I think it boils down to sending content, as in sending your marketing to the right people at the right time, people who are much more likely to instruct you than just blanket canvassing an area. So we try to help our clients market intelligently, I would say, which has a massive impact on increasing market share. And don't forget, with Spectre, you can monitor that as well. So you can see exactly how your market share is doing. You can see exactly how your return on investment is doing. So that's the Spectre sales side. Spectre lettings, very similar. It's all about contacting landlords at the right time with the right content. But again, Spectre lettings is actually slightly different, because we've got the addresses for properties that are currently on the market to let, but we also give you a database of properties that are currently let in your area with the estimated tenancy renewal dates, so that you can time your letters to land with landlords when they're most likely to be considering a change of agent, i.e. if they're approaching that tenancy renewal. So again, I mean, there's nothing else on the market like Spectre lettings for actually getting in contact with landlords. And I was saying to David before we got on air, there isn't a better time than right now to be prospecting those landlords for two reasons, in my opinion. Firstly, the agents that have got, I want to say, I can't think of a better way to say it, the agents that have got their shit together and have actually got a plan, about how to get people moving again safely, are really stealing a march at the moment. And we're seeing it on Spectre a lot. You're contacting landlords. These landlords, some of them haven't heard anything from their agents for quite a long time. They're really worried. I can't remember exactly what you were saying, David, before, probably zoned in and out as you were talking.
I didn't realise I didn't realize we were married, but you know, that works now. No, I think what I was saying earlier was that now is a time where you're going to have a higher level of rent arrears from tenants, and the agents that are doing it right are communicating with those tenants, setting up payment plans, understanding a little bit about how long this might last, and they're communicating that to very anxious landlords. There's another demographic, which are agents that Simon was referring to yesterday in another discussion we were having, who haven't opened their office, haven't answered phones, are not talking to the tenants or the landlords, and are now thinking about going back to work this week or next week. So by the time they get on the job, the landlords will already be perhaps a couple of months in arrears and with no information. So now is the time to be talking to those people, because they're going to be looking for an agent that has been doing all of those things.
Exactly. Under normal circumstances, your marketing, you've got to try and get a landlord away from one of your competitors through various means. Whereas actually right now you've got a hook. If you are able to contact them, you have got a plan together. And I think the key is, if you can come across as a safe pair of hands right now, then you've got a huge opportunity to actually start contacting these landlords, having conversations and getting them to switch. We lost Simon.
We lost Simon, but it's a bonus. Let's carry on.
So yeah, I think there's that's broadly how Spectre, both on the sales and lettings side, massively helps agents to increase their market share, particularly in the current environment.
So obviously that works by contact. Eventually, that gives you the ability to contact the landlord at wherever it is that they're registered, as opposed to the actual property address, and you're getting good results from that. So
yeah, no, we are. I mean, with Spectre Lettings, it's we can give you the addresses of the properties that are to let or let, but then we give you some methods of basically uploading your own data, attaching landlord details. We've got a direct integration with the land registry, so if somebody did want to purchase the landlord's details, they can just click a button, it populates, and that's slightly cheaper than you can buy it from the land registry directly. So there are various options that we do with Spectre Lettings. We also point out for you guys, the agents, which of those properties are much more likely to be investment properties. So for example, if they've been bought and let out within 6 months, we show you that. So therefore, if you're going to spend the money to buy the landlord details, you're probably more likely to get, say, a portfolio landlord. And then once you've started using the system for a while and you build that picture of data, we also tell you who your portfolio landlords are.
Great question here from Emmeline. How does this work with regards to GDPR? So do you get any resistance from landlords being contacted who say, look, I don't want you to have my data?
No, it's a great question. So on the sales side, by default, it's going to go to the homeowner unless our clients upload their valuation data, which many of them do, but presumably if they've been out to value, they've got the right permissions. So as long as it says to the homeowner, it falls outside of the scope of GDPR. From the lettings perspective, we've got assurances from the land registry that the land registry is a public ledger, and that that lettings agents have a legitimate interest in contacting landlords. But we're not we aren't able to give legal advice, because obviously we're not lawyers. So we always say to people, just make sure that you're comfortable with it, and if you're really nervous about it, you can take away the name and just address it to dear homeowner again, which again just falls outside of the scope of GDPR because it's not personally identifiable information.
We've been joined by a special guest, Mr. Simon Whale.
Sorry, it was just McGregor's delivery. My PC decided to do a Windows update, so yeah, perfect.
You went wrong, PC.
Heather, we're getting some good questions here as well, so we'll read this one out. Do you limit the number of times that vendors will receive communications? Is there a potential that they could become bombarded, and how do you balance this? Surely that's down to the agent to decide to not abuse the system, if you like. Because to get the best out of it, you don't want to become a pest either, do you?
Exactly. And I think, so all of the agents have got the ability to choose their own triggers. So it's totally up to the agent themselves. If we thought that it was potentially too much, our customer success team are not shy in coming forward with saying, look, we really think you'd get better results if you did this, put it that way. But also, I think from the agent's perspective as well, if they were sending out too many letters, they would get they would get that feedback back. And obviously the agent themselves doesn't want to be coming across as super aggressive most of the time. So they would pare it back. What we actually normally do in terms of advising around letter triggers themselves is we normally say to clients, have a think about when your main competitor's sole agency agreement ends, and you might just want to, just before, just on, and just after, increase the frequency of the letters, but don't bombard people around that. But usually I'd say most agents write once a month, and I think one letter a month is not it's not generally
it's not much, is it?
I mean, the worst that they're going to do is ignore it. The best that they're going to do is even if, do you know what? Sometimes I've been persistent with certain vendors, and I have had a call to say, listen, why do you keep contacting me? But that has actually opened up a discussion that then led to me going to see them and getting the instruction. And I think it's all how you field those calls. So if you're there to genuinely add value and help, that's one thing. If you're there to snipe at a competing agent and to rubbish them, I don't think that works anyway. I don't think that's a message that goes down well.
No, definitely not. And the feedback we normally get as well is that, once somebody's been on the market for quite a long time, typically their usual complaint is that they're not hearing much from their existing agent, lack of communication, they don't know what's going on. So by the very fact that you are contacting that person, and remember with Spectre, every single letter is different. Every single letter is relevant to the exact situation that vendor is going to be in at that time. We even can have different letterheads in every single letter. So, and they're on nice letterhead quality paper, no barcodes or anything like that. So it really looks like somebody in your branch has spent the time and the effort to write to that vendor in particular, rather than, I'm just blanketing with you the same letters over and over again, and it's clearly from a print house somewhere. So usually it's actually sowing quite a powerful seed that you're in more regular communication with them than their own agent are. And that's probably, a nice little prompt for them to pick up the phone, hopefully.
So just picking up on that point and letterhead, because I know you and I have discussed this before, sometimes the letterhead and the background can be the secret sauce in that letter. So are there agents that you've been seeing that are doing something particularly different to stand out with using that background?
Yeah, I mean, our best performing agents, if I'm honest, go to town with how they set up their Spectre account. So I probably won't name any names because it's not fair, but one of our best performing ones who's I think they're in the tens of thousands of % return on investment, something insane like that. They've got a different letterhead for every single trigger. And it looks like the same letter, but they just have different graphics down the right-hand side.
Yeah.
They have things like different testimonials, nicely presented at the bottom. They have the awards that they've won. They have pictures of the branch. They have different stats. Just on that, we're actually very close to going live with a Dataloft integration as well, so that Dataloft stats, can automatically be refreshed every week on your Spectre letterhead. So, so that every letter looks different. It's interesting. You're presenting something visually appealing. Some of our clients do go to town with that, and it does work very well, if I'm honest.
So that's worth talking about there, though, Heather, isn't it? Dataloft, for those people that don't know, they came out, didn't they? I think were they the research department at Savills or something like that? And obviously, and they put together, they really bring to life those market statistics, don't they? In terms of statistical information, but infograms and things like that, and you can have widgets on the website. So that's a really interesting tie-up between, because I think what a lot of agents get frustrated about is that there are a lot of good companies out there, like your good self, but they are all just too disjointed, and so collaborations like that can be fantastic. And I think that's I know we've spoke about it. I think that'll be a really interesting one.
Yeah, so, we're really excited. Sorry, David.
No, I was going to say, just touching on that point, that's obviously collaboration and integration. So do you tend to sort of integrate with CRM systems as well? How does that work?
We've got we've started the ball rolling on the REPIT integration. So as soon as they've got live data in their pass, we should be able to build that, and quite excited about that. And generally, we will integrate with any CRM that's got an open API that wants to integrate, basically. But yeah, the Dataloft integration, we've just been working really closely with them. Again, quite open. Their stats and infographics feed through into the Spectre letters. And they've actually been really clever about it. So, for example, one of them they've done as a 3-month letter, and all the stats on the right-hand side are going to be live stats for what's happened in that market over the previous 3 months. So that's pretty cool and relevant. So, generally, if you're a vendor and you open that, it's going to be a nice letter. It's going to look good, and it's got relevant stats as to what's happened since you put your property on the market, which I think is pretty nice.
That's perfect. Awesome. You spoke there, Heather. Let's go to the other end. There is, obviously, you spoke about what best practice looks like. Being honest, what are the people that aren't working well with it? What are they doing wrong? I mean, I guess it's about it's what a classic. You've got to put the time and energy into it. But what would you highlight are the mistakes you want to avoid when you're coming on board with Spectre?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say there are three major things that you can do wrong. The first one sounds really obvious, but is not use it. And you'd be amazed how many people start and they're really excited, and then maybe that person leaves and the business hasn't got a process in place to replace. James, I live in London. We don't have a lot of space. It's desperate times. It was a lockdown.
Oh, I haven't noticed.
She's got the piano on the other wall.
Jokes, to be honest. But yeah, sorry, I forgot what I was going to say.
Three things. We were going through three
things. So the first is actually use it. And I would say our best performing clients are incredible in terms of the processes they put in place in their business to make sure that things like this get done. So for example, one of our bigger clients, anybody that joins the business as part of their onboarding, they have Spectre training. And again, our customer success team will always train our clients however much you want, unlimited, whenever you want. Like, it's in our best interest that everybody in your business knows how to use Spectre. So, that for us is brilliant. So anytime anybody joins, we get an automated email to say so-and-so needs training, bang, and it's done. So that's the first thing is I say make sure that, you've got processes in place to make sure somebody is responsible for generating that. It'll only take 2 clicks a day. So it's 1 minute a day, but just make sure it gets done. We do build things, by the way. So from if you're for multi-branches, they have a head office dashboard where they can see who's generated letters, when, what the return on investment is. They get an email every Monday morning. It's telling them that. So it's really easy to keep track of who's using it and who isn't. But that's number one, is just not using it properly.
Yeah.
Number two is content, bad content. I was talking to Vicky from Location. I don't know if you know Vicky and Asa.
Yeah, great agent.
Yeah, Vicky said something that really resonated with me, which is, the way she thinks about it is, yes, she's got a wonderful timeline of letters and all of those letters are excellent. But realistically, how many of the letters is the vendor going to read? Maybe 1 or 2 and really read them. So she said the way she thinks about it is to make sure that if they're only going to read 1 letter, that letter says everything you want to be telling that person about your business and how you do business and who you are and what you do differently. And I think, a lot of the time it's a bit like, let's just get some content in there and hope for the best. Whereas actually this is your one shot to really get across who you are and how you would do, how you would do their sale differently and give them a reason to switch to you. And it's like somebody walking into your branch and saying, look, I've been on the market with X for 8 weeks now. I'm feeling pretty frustrated. Why should I switch to you? And that's why I say to my clients is whatever you would say to their face, try and somehow get across in that letter. So content is the second thing. And then the third thing is actually using all the features. So there's so many features in Spectre now. And yes, you've got your timeline of letters for on-market properties, which is obviously a must. But for example, we have a 2020 feature, what we call 2020 or sold in your area. Yeah. And it's got 2 parts to it. The first part is absolutely typical sort of sold in your area letters that go to properties that aren't on the market. But the second half of it, where you can draw a shape around the property that you sold, and Spectre will pick the properties that are currently on the market. What that does is it adds in social proof to your normal Spectre timeline of letters. So, for example, we see that clients that use both of those features typically get almost double the ROI than those that just do the normal timeline of letters. So yes, be regularly in contact, but also throw in social proof. Show them that you're selling properties in the area when the person that they're on with isn't. And that, is incredibly powerful when you're on the market and not selling, to hear that another agent just keeps selling. And remember, with that feature, they'll receive a disproportionate amount of sold in your area letters from the Spectre client, because you're not sending it to everyone. You're just sending it to the people that are on the market around them over and over again. So yeah, I would say use it. content, use of all the features, and then the final one, which I shouldn't really include, but sometimes if you've got a terrible website or a terrible brand or a terrible reputation, I don't think letters will make any difference, but they are extremely few and far between with our clients. Well, there's one on.
So I tell you what we found really works is if you're having particular success with one, certain properties are more popular than others, and certainly that's true when you talk about certain price brackets. But you can only sell the property once, and if you've done 40 viewings on a property, and you can only sell it to one out of those 40. Technically speaking, you've got 39 people there that would be looking for a similar property. And that is something that vendors, I've never, the ROI in terms of people getting in contact after receiving a letter to say, look, we've sold this round the corner. We've got another 39 people that are still looking for a house like yours. Get in touch. It always works. It literally never fails.
No, definitely. And we're actually building a new feature that's going to go live probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks, where you'll be able to do some really cool stuff around targeting off-market properties. But we've already built filter so you can filter by estimated value, house type, property type, area, loads of stuff. So that, let's say you do have a really hot buyer that wants a particular property, you can just send a letter really easily through Spectre to those properties.
I think that was going to be our next question, whether or not there was anything on your roadmap in terms of what you've got coming soon, anything cooking in the back office there.
There's loads. I mean, we've been working really hard through lockdown. Well, we always work hard, but we've got an in-house dev team. That's the first thing to say, because I think a lot of prop tech companies don't necessarily have an in-house dev team, so they're not always developing, whereas we are. So that feature that I've just mentioned is coming soon. It'll also show you how long that person has been at that property, all sorts of stuff. So you can really do some targeted off-market prospecting as well. We're adding postcards probably within the next month or so. So you'll be able to do not just letters, but postcards of various shapes and sizes. This is just on Spectre Sales, by the way. You'll be able to, we've got a really big thing coming that I can't announce yet because we're probably a couple of months away. I know. I always
you know what? It's exactly what she said on the podcast in December.
What's that?
It just keeps alluding.
Something big coming. And I didn't know that it was coronavirus. But it happened.
It's the second wave. Brilliant.
Heather, we've got, just to throw it back to work again, Emmeline's asked the question, do you have translation tools? Because, places like London is a real melting pot. And obviously you're not necessarily writing to people where English is their first language. So is there something that you've looked at on that?
There isn't, but I've written it down. I'll look into it. I guess you would have to know the nationality of the person you're writing to, but actually on Spectre things, you often would. Because it's a mixture of sort of our data and your data, and actually on Spectre Sales, if you've uploaded your valuation data and you know them, then and we show you which ones those are, then you could do that. So no, that's really good feedback, and I'll take it back to the dev team, see what they say.
Simon, you may be getting a letter addressed Shalom, Mr. Whale.
It's a bit outside your patch, Disbury, isn't it?
It's a little bit, but I sometimes cover those cheaper areas.
Heather, you're able to see every client's return on investment, isn't it? And everyone talks about ROI. And actually, with a lot of suppliers, it's very, very different difficult to measure, isn't it? Under normal circumstances, what do your clients who are consistently getting the higher returns, what are they doing?
They have really good content. That is the first thing to say. I know I keep banging on about content, but it's so important. And that, we see really good content from, one branch independents through to our large companies who've got proper marketing teams writing it. But it's all about that part that I said before about talk about, this is the opposite of what most marketing people say, and I recognize that, but talk about yourself a little bit, as in what does make you different. Yeah, why should somebody switch to you? And often what they're looking for is reassurance. So our best performing clients usually have something in the letter content that the recipient would find reassuring, whether it is some stats that back up how they perform, whether it's awards won, whether it's testimonials, anything like that normally works very well. and then regularity of usage, and are they using all the features? I mean, as a tech company, it's one of our biggest challenges because we usually add a new feature once every 2 weeks. Trying to communicate that, with all of our clients is actually extraordinarily difficult. So we send out monthly update emails, but I don't think everybody often knows that there's all these new features are in there and that they could use them. So our best performing clients do tend to know, and whether that's because they read the emails or they ring up and just ask. I mean, loads of our clients will just say, I just want a refresher call every 6 months, book it in. We're like, perfect, thanks. We'll just run through the new features. So yeah, that's what our better performing ones tend to do.
So it's just getting the most out of the app. I mean, it was always that, you know, the thing we were, I think, quite famous for at Repeat was we included the training. You know, our founder, to be fair to George, he didn't really know the tech side very well, but he identified that the problem in the market at the time was actually that there were some all right packages out there, but they were only using 50 or 60% of it. And that's absolutely standard, isn't it? It's still true today. So if you can, over time, through key account management and training, get that usage up, it just stands to reason that satisfaction levels will go up as well, won't it?
Well, we've invested really heavily in our customer success team. So we added 2 more people to it recently. So, you know, they're all just super keen to be talking to our clients all the time. They're really proactive. Our theory is we should be contacting you if you're not doing as well as we expect before you contact us. And that's what we're trying to hold ourselves to. But like, I'll give you a good example. So we've got a feature in Spectre called the Vault. And what that does is automate letters to go to people that have withdrawn from the market without selling every 3 months, for example. And we even cross-check against the land registry to check that property didn't sell privately in the meantime, so that our clients know that they're writing to the people who did try to sell but didn't. Because obviously they're much more likely to come back to the market than, you know, a random house on a random street. And I would say at the moment, only about 50% of our clients are using that, even though we've surpassed 8,000 Vault instructions since we launched it. So it's extremely effective. Yeah. And we're, you know, only 50% of our clients, I think, know about it. So things like that we need to do, we need to work on. We need to make sure that our customer success team are getting the messages out there and letting people know everything's there. I mean, Spectre Lettings, we've just launched 2 new features, portfolio, landlords and investment properties. Again, we have seen actually pretty good uptake on that, but that's only because we had the luxury of people had time over lockdown to be looking at things and do the training. So yeah, can't remember what
I mean, you mentioned before the size. First of all, having a dev team's important, but you know, you do have a sizable team as well, don't you? And I mean, that's just illustrated by that fortnightly update there. So I know you're putting a lot of time and attention, certainly on the letting side of things, isn't it? Because of course that has been the holy grail for so many agents for a period of time. And I think if we're on, obviously, if they were honest, it was the one area that really Visi didn't get anywhere near. So again, I think that
we have only ever recruited senior developers because although Spectre, I'd like to think everybody would agree, has a nice, clean, simple user interface, it's actually very complex in the background. And address matching and things like that is notoriously complex, as any developer will tell you. Yeah. So we actually invested really heavily, largely because of the brands that we work with. There can't, you know, what we call anti-embarrassment algorithms. So things that stop people sending letters that they wouldn't want to send. So things like, if a property is on the market with 2 agents, you don't want to be sending 2 letters. Yeah. If you're one of 2 agents, you don't want to be sending any letters. If an agent does something naughty like portal juggling, you don't want to start your letters again from new instructions. So all of these types of things Spectre takes care of in the background, but it is quite complex. And
I wish my life had an anti-embarrassment algorithm.
We need to come up with a better name for that.
You'd never be online.
It's the one app I would use every day. It'd be perfect.
Yeah. So no, we do. We're recruiting now. We're recruiting more devs now because we've got so much we want to add to Spectre sales.
So that's really interesting because so many companies over the past few weeks have furloughed devs in their thousands, or just seem to sort of stop innovation because they had to sort of get a handle on costs as well. But you guys have continued to push the envelope and in terms of new ideas and new features.
We haven't furloughed any devs. We have furloughed some members of the team, but we haven't furloughed any devs because we want to go full steam ahead with, I mean, our roadmap is so long and our dreams are so big in terms of what we can achieve with Spectre that there's absolutely no point pressing pause on that. So yeah, got some pretty big stuff coming on both sales and lettings. Are two separate teams.
Excellent. The UI is fantastic. I mean, you know, it's such a difficult thing when because you're needing to portray a lot of information, so it could look very, very just jumbled or, you know, spreadsheety, and that's not how Spectre feels at all, does it? It is a nice, clean interface. I always judge it by the fact, could you find your way around the application without a user manual? And
I'll go one step further. It's an immensely cool and sexy brand.
Yeah.
I'm glad you like it. Well, we do. We have.
I do actually feel like James Bond every time I log into it, or at least a Bond villain. But
yes,
one of them.
Tout that property. That's a cat, by the way.
We do have a very talented designer, but we generally apply a few philosophies. Like, the more complex you make it to use, the less people will use it. That is obvious, and that's something we know. The more buttons you need to press before you're sending your letters, the less likely people are to be sending letters. It's literally 3 clicks, you know, so there can be no excuses and all that sort of stuff. But also we have different personas of the people that we imagine using the system in terms of different, you know, how tech savvy.
Do you have a David? Do you have a David?
We have a Doris.
This guy can't log in.
Well, just to show you, I've actually, and she's right. We don't use half of Spectre. We should do. I've written in big letters here, the Vault. That's something to go out there.
One of the things we've got in beta at the moment is market intelligence, which, Simon, I know you've seen. I don't know if you've seen it, David, but again, the clients that are using that are loving it because they're getting stats from the market intelligence to actually include in their letters and getting insight in terms of, okay, well, what are our USPs? Where are we better than our competitors? And it gives you all of that insight. So pretty excited about rolling that out over the next couple of weeks as well.
Throw me a beta bone. I've always wanted to be a beta tester. Come on.
All right, okay, I'll get you on it.
That again is vital, though, isn't it? I mean, the one thing that it forced traditional agents, the online agents, it forced traditional agents to really think about where they excelled and where they specialised. So that market intelligence, again, being spoon-fed to them is insanely useful.
I actually got one of our clients an instruction from it the other day because a really old friend got in touch and said, I've instructed this agent. Don't think they're doing a very good job. I know you're in the industry. Can you recommend it? I probably shouldn't say this. So I thought, okay, well, I'll go on to their market intelligence and have a look. And I basically manipulated the data, not too much, like by the price range that his property was in and over the last 12 months for that specific postcode, and got it so that our client, was at the top of the league tables, took a snapshot, and I was like, these are the people that you need to speak to. Look, they're in your price range, they're top. And they've just instructed that. Please
let me beta test it.
Yeah, I'll write.
Where's your speciality? Two bed bungalows in 170 to 200k.
Hey, come on! I've been known to sell £1 million houses as well, you know. Heather, you've got a fantastic offer for Kerfuffle members, haven't you?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about it.
So we charge by postcode sector. So it's a monthly subscription priced by postcode sector. And we are doing for Kerfuffle members 2 free postcode sectors for every 10 sectors you take if you sign up before the end of June. That's right, isn't it, Simon?
That's absolutely right, spot on. And just explain again, because just for some people, just explain the sector one. So the sector it's like M22, isn't it? That's the sector element.
So M27-2 or M27-3. Sometimes if you say M20 and then 2, it sounds like M22.
Oh yeah.
And for our London listeners, SW1, SW.
Yeah. I thought you were going to go through them all there. That was horrific.
NW11, the home of the salt beef.
So
we always do look, by the way, when we do when we set up a client with postcode sectors, because sometimes you can get postcode sectors that are, for example, predominantly commercial. So we always take a view and make sure that it's fair.
Okay, that's great. Well, thank you for that. I mean, that's great. So yeah, act now. It's obviously on the landing page, and then of course they can see your reviews on there. I think there's a nice video review as well. Simon Bradbury of Thomas Morris giving a really good give good feedback on that as well, isn't there? Just one element to talk about as well is there's obviously a lot of people out there doing content as well. So people like Jerry Lyons, friend of the show, Jerry Lyons. Do you advise yourselves on content? Do you team up with any of those guys, or what's the policy? Because of course, content is the biggest. It's all very well, having a really cost-effective tool like that, but to create the content takes time, energy, and a creativity as well.
Yeah, I mean, generally, if people say, "Can you write the content for us?" we will say no, but we will always, for example, recommend Jerry. He's written loads of good content for our Spectre clients that works, which is always good to know. Yeah, but generally, we will say to them, if you want to write it yourself, have a chat with us, have a chat with our customer success team. We will ask you a few questions about yourself, and then we'll tell you this is the sort of thing you need to be putting in your letters. So we won't write it for them, but we'll push them in the direction of the stuff that we know works, and also the stuff that we know doesn't work based on, we've had a long time, and obviously we are the leading prospecting product, so we've got a lot of data to look at. So we'll be pretty brutal, to be honest, as Simon from Thomas Morris will tell you. I was pretty brutal with my feedback personally with him, with his letters, so they've been redone.
Excellent. Well, telling people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. That's what it's about.
And you mentioned there that you are the leading prospecting product. So in that marketplace, data quality is really what that makes you stand out as well. That's something you take really, the integrity of that data is something you take really seriously.
We do. We're very, for want of a better term, anal about it, because it is complex. We are a prop tech company, so we understand the nuances of the property market, and when you want to send these letters and the things that could trip you up. We invest extremely heavily in getting what we think we've got more data and better / more accurate data. And I think the client base that we have supports that, as in, people who are make sure that they have to have that confidence in their brand protection, and we give them that because they know they're not going to send a letter that's going to embarrass them, basically. So yeah, if we show data, then particularly on Spectre sales, we're 99.95% certain that address is correct.
Wow.
Yeah, so on Spectre lettings, it's newer, so I would say it's very, very slightly lower than that. So we're still learning, but every time we learn, we build something to spot that sort of thing in future. So we're constantly learning, and that's one of the best things about having an in-house dev team, because we know that our data just gets better and better and better, which I think is a huge advantage.
That's great. That's great. Right. Unless there's any more questions from the crowd, we've had some really varied questions today, so it's really been sort of good to sort of get to grips with it. And I've discovered some new features that I'm not using. I'm going to get on.
Yeah, I'm success manager on it, David.
But I'm gonna build my life around this anti-embarrassment algorithm. I love that. I love it.
We definitely need to come up with a catchier phrase for that. But yeah, no, I appreciated the questions, actually. They were all really good questions.
Good stuff. Well, thank you again, and we advise everyone, obviously, go and have a look at that. Obviously, talk to you guys direct or through obviously our site as well to take advantage of that offer, because I think you're right. I think, look, we very much. I think David, we were having a chat a while back, and we were talking about what are the essentials packages for an estate agent. Not if you were setting up a new agency, and apart from the portals, your CRM system, you've got to have Spectre in there, haven't you? It's really...
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you need a top-notch prospecting tool, and why play around with those that are untested? There is so much social proof that Spectre works, and I know so many of the top leading agents that I have a relationship with, and they swear by it. So it does what it says on the box.
Not swear by it in the way that they do about many other prop tech companies and things like that.
No, and again, that support is you were talking earlier about training and support, and a lot of even one of the companies you may have mentioned have stopped offering the same level of training that they used to at the beginning, and they sort of advise you to sort of learn it yourself. But Spectre will take the time to talk you through it. If you've got the time to learn, they'll teach you.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that, because I genuinely think if we can help our clients do better through, that helps us as well. So why limit the training and the support? It doesn't make any sense to us. So yeah, we have got a big customer success team. And I do think, just, sorry, Simon.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to reiterate that this isn't me bashing any of the big agents out there, but I do genuinely think at the moment the feel that we're getting is that the smaller agents have got a bit of a march on the larger ones, particularly in London, I would say. I don't know, potentially around the rest of the country as well, but there is this huge opportunity right now to show that you're ahead. You've got plans in place to, you've got your safety measures done, and it's a huge opportunity to get that message out there. And so I would say, particularly if you're a small or medium-sized business that's got a plan, sort of seize the moment, because you've got a big hook to use right now.
That uncertain market point is, it's seen as a negative, and actually, if you've got your, again, not to swear, but got your shit together, that of course is why so often market share changes dramatically during recessions and downturns, isn't it? You can come out of this. Well, we were talking there about, it appears that a lot of the competition haven't even bothered opening the doors or picking up the phone. So if you can or improve that level of customer satisfaction and talk about it, you are going to seize that unfair share of the market, aren't you?
Definitely. Be greedy when people are fearful, and fearful when people are greedy. And now is the time to be greedy, because there's so many people. And I booked in a valuation with online with an agent, as I said before, I'm moving to London. Booked in a valuation online with a big company in London. They confirmed it via email and said, however, please note our offices are closed. Really unclear whether they were going to turn up or not. And anyway, didn't turn up and no phone call. So, where people are behaving like that with consumers, it is the opportunity for the people that are not behaving like that and who are communicating with their own vendors and their own landlords to start communicating with the other vendors and the other landlords who've not heard anything from anybody for a long period of time and are extremely worried and want a safe pair of hands. And I can promise you Spectre is the best tool on the market to get in touch with those people. So seize the moment.
Excellent. Well, if you're out there, you want to get that market, obviously talk to Heather and her team. Heather, as usual, it's been fantastic talking to you, and we wish you well. And obviously, we're going to keep an eye out for your. Do make sure you spill the news to us, Huggy Bear style, so we can talk about it when you've got those other things to talk about. And
and thank you so much for having me.
No worries.
Thanks for coming on.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
Bye bye.